Patreon member shout out. Don't be a baby, remember what you told me. Shut up and take your money where your mouth is. That's what you get for waking up in Vegas. Get up and okay, move on. So hey everyone, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming here with Kerrie. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Before we get started, tell everyone a little about yourself because you're no longer living in Vegas, right?
I am not. I actually moved from Vegas it's coming up on 11 years now. I'm in Huntington Beach.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, cool. And you moved there more for work or for family or for
so both. My husband's mom was getting older. His dad definitely was. Just after we moved here, his dad passed on, but it was mostly for work. My husband's an engineer, so it's a lot easier being out here than it is in Vegas.
okay. So tell us about Vegas. You were born there or you just moved there when you were young?
I was born in Chicago, actually.
Mhm.
My parents moved to Vegas when I was about 18 months old.
Okay.
Not sure whether it was the best move of their life or the worst.
Okay.
By the time that my parents were still in Chicago, my mom's entire family was already in Las Vegas. Her
Yeah.
parents were in Florida at the time, and my dad hated his parents, so it was fine. So
Okay.
they, so they decided to move to Vegas. Like I said, when I was about 18 months old, give or take.
Yeah.
The problem was my mom's family were all mafia,
Mhm.
and my dad never wanted any part of that. But, eventually my mom, you know, dragged everybody into it. So she was always kind of neck deep in
Yeah.
her family.
Even in
And
Vegas.
in Vegas,
Oh, in Vegas. Okay.
in Vegas, I won't mention any names. You guys probably aren't stupid. You can put two and two together who they were.
Oh,
Um, But growing up, we had a really strange childhood. I mean, incredibly strange looking back on it. And when I compare my kids' childhood to mine growing up, like night and day, you know? So we just everything that we owned fell off a truck.
yeah.
Literally. I mean, everything we owned. I had peach silk wallpaper in my bedroom. Fell off the truck.
My
I
God.
I mean, it was one time my mom's washing machine broke down, for instance,
Yeah.
and my uncle saw her going into a laundromat. And she said, yeah, we're going to get it fixed or something like that. Because we were really middle class. Because, like I said, my dad wanted no part of that.
Yeah.
And the next day, Sears was at the door, new washer and dryer. It's just how that's how we lived.
Yeah.
Um, it was just a very strange situation. And because I knew that we were middle class, I also knew that there were things that when we were kids, we were terrible kids. We really were. We would
Oh.
snoop around. As soon as my parents were out of the house, we were in their bedroom snooping around in everything.
Oh.
And we would find shoe boxes full of cash. And I knew that even when I was young, I knew that that didn't belong there because we didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
Um, Guns all over the house, and I mean, my dad would have hunting guns and stuff like that, but not handguns.
Yeah.
Things like my uncles showing up in the middle of the night, in the middle of summer, waking my father up. They'd be out in the garage doing something, and just pouring sweat. My mom would be running lemonade and beers and stuff like that into them. And it wasn't until later, and of course this is just hearsay because my father, he's still alive. He has cancer right now, and I don't know how long he has to live, honestly.
No.
But he's always said, please don't mention any of this until I'm gone. But apparently they were dismantling guns in the
Okay.
garage. And if they were dismantling guns, the guns were not used for anything good.
Yeah. So they'd
Um,
put like cinder blocks in, they'd just burn them down, like that type of thing.
I have no idea. But I do know that they were hanging them between the walls in the garage.
Okay.
So the whole thing was growing up like that was scary. It was crazy.
So what did your mom have to do to get things that, fell off the truck? Did she have any, and how was she enthralled in that? Was she like, hey, someone's going to drop off a package at your place, just keep it hidden until somebody picks it up?
So no, what they would do was, no, they would deliver it right to the door. They didn't care. So what they
Yeah.
would do was, like this is something that actually happened in Chicago. It didn't happen in Vegas. My mom needed a new refrigerator because it was the 70s and she had to have that beautiful avocado look, right? And so, so they would, one of my uncles would go into an appliance store and kick a dent in the back of a refrigerator and go, okay, you can't sell this now because it's damaged. But it was in the back. It wasn't cosmetic. It didn't matter. So then that would be delivered to our house or to somebody else's house or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just, it was kind of all the wives would get together and they'd say, oh, I'm redoing my kitchen. I'm redoing my bathroom. My daughter's bedroom needs to be redone. It really looks like hell. And boom, 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 one thing after another. You'd end up with, even the carpeting in my house fell off a truck. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
The carpeting in my house fell off a truck. That's how it was. And then, that's kind of how we grew up. We also grew up, like my mom would teach me things like, hey, Kerrie, what's a dirty penny? A copper. Because we weren't supposed to talk to police. The police
Yeah.
were the enemy to us when we were
Yeah.
kids. It was a very strange childhood. And then when I was about, I think I was 10, my grandparents died. They died within 3 months of each other.
Oh, wow.
And I know that my parents, our parents, my mom, her sister, all of them, they had some kind of falling out. But I'm assuming it's something to do with the will. I'm sure it's about money.
Yeah.
Because as soon as somebody dies, you know how that brings out the absolute worst in people.
Yeah.
But it was the whole situation was so strange because this was a family that we literally got together with all the time. And like, for instance, I was the youngest of all the cousins. And in fact, there was only one other girl, and it was my cousin who was quite a bit older than me. So at the time, the truth of the matter is the police really were our enemy. I mean, my cousin was pulled into a cop car and beaten. He was about 12 or 13 years old, beaten badly. The two uncles that I'm talking about, they lived on streets and their houses faced each other.
Yeah.
And so somebody came around one time, shot up the first uncle's house, swung around, shot up the second uncle's house, and missed my cousin. I mean, we're talking about huge bullet holes. Blew a dresser off my cousin's wall. He heard the first shots and rolled off the bed. Otherwise, he'd have been dead.
Yeah.
And as they were pulling around to get out, they got into an accident. And there were police officers. Yeah, and my uncle went on trial for racketeering, and was found guilty. But the judge found the evidence so offensive, the evidence wasn't there. He fined my uncle $1. No jail time, nothing like that.
Yeah. So what happened to the cops that
they tried to hide it, but it did come out. There were several reporters that did nothing but hound my family. And unfortunately they had no choice but to report on it.
Yeah.
So it was a big mess, but it was very strange situations. Things like, let's see. Well, the shooting was really bad.
Yeah.
That one was really bad because, but after that, I always had to have somebody bring me to school and bring me home. And one of them, his name was Joe. That's all I'll leave it at. Really big, bald guy. He used to be a cop down, I'll just say down south. And the reason he was no longer a cop was because there was a child rapist going around the area, and he became a child murderer. And they caught him, and he got out on a technicality. And so Joe and some of his friends went and got the guy, and they hung him. They hanged him from the Piggly Wiggly sign.
Okay.
So I guess it's a grocery store down there. I don't know. But every Christmas, Joe would tell this story, and it was just such a gagging story because he'd tell the story. It's like, yeah, by the time they cut him down, his neck was this long.
Good,
So
good for them.
I'm trying to make you understand the kind of people that I grew up around.
Yeah.
Joe, unfortunately, did end up going to prison. He was already a big guy, but
Yeah.
when he went to prison, he ran the weight room. So by the time he got out, he was huge.
It's jacked.
He was huge. But this was the guy. But I mean, people were terrified of him, and rightfully so. He was scary looking, you know. But every morning he'd pick me up. He'd take me to. This was one of my uncle's fronts. It was called the Food Factory, and he'd take me there, and I'd have pancakes every morning.
Nice.
And it was either Joe or Sammy. One of them always had some stupid little stuffed animal for me. You know, it was always something. They were both real softies, you know, but people were terrified of them. But people were terrified of my uncles too, and I couldn't understand that either.
Uh,
But
and you were around what age around this time?
so when Joe started taking me to school, I was in kindergarten. So I was about 5, or 4 or 5, somewhere in there. And then Joe went to prison before my uncles were killed. So probably between 5 and 9, somewhere there. So it was either Joe or Sammy. One of them were always there.
Yeah.
So it was just, I always thought that everybody had somebody to take them to school like that. You know, I had no idea. So, and then when I was, after my grandparents died, when I was about 10, like I said, when I was 11, 2 of my uncles disappeared. My uncle had, so there were like 5 or 6 brothers there. I can't even remember at this point, Vic, Vince, Anthony, whatever. But one of my uncles didn't get involved in it, and he was a dentist back in Chicago. And my uncle, who was not the great guy, said he was going back to Chicago to have his teeth worked on.
Okay.
And he disappeared. And we didn't know where he was for the longest time. And my aunt, his wife, she was such a mess. I can't even tell you. When we went to go see her, they had this huge white baby grand piano in their front room, which is funny because none of them actually played. But she had just slammed a candle and let it burn the wax down. So the candle was just burning onto this baby grand piano, and she was sitting on the floor, just completely mute. And we were watching her, and my mom was trying to talk to her, and she said, she kept looking up, and my dad came, and my aunt looked up at my dad and said, "You know how much he loved you, right, Jerry?" That's my dad's name. And my dad's like, yeah, you know. Because he actually really did love my dad. It was the strangest thing. My dad wanted nothing to do with his business, but he genuinely liked my dad. And it wasn't, you know, days later, we found out, of course, he and his brother, my other uncle, were murdered.
Was it en route to Chicago, or was it?
It was in Chicago. They were beaten almost to death. Yeah. Almost. It was pretty bad from what I understand. I have seen the autopsy picture since then. It was bad. Yeah. So they were beaten almost to death, and then they were buried alive.
Oh.
Yeah. And the autopsy, the only reason they know that is because they had dirt in their lungs. Yeah. And so the farmer, it was found they were found in a cornfield, and this farmer, he noticed this newly turned earth on his land. Now I know that he would have seen it first, so he's probably paid off at the time to turn a blind eye. And honestly, with that kind of stuff, I'd have turned a blind eye for free, truthfully.
Scary.
But they were found, and after that, the family really did dissolve. I did keep in touch with my aunts and quite a few of my cousins. My uncle's son, especially, he was devastated and ended up highly into drugs and things like that. Just a mess. And I went to a few cousins' weddings, things like that. But after that, I just kind of lost touch with them. And then my parents made this really great decision. When I was 12, they decided to move back to Chicago. Can you imagine this? They decided, my dad hated Chicago. So it was one of the reasons that he was okay with moving to Las Vegas. He hated it. He hated the weather. He hated the people. He hated it. But they decided to move back to Chicago. One of the reasons was because my mom was hooked on these painkillers. They were called just she would, and she was the strangest person. Most drug addicts would take like any kind of codeine, right?
Yeah.
I would think. She would not. She only had to have this one particular pill. It was called Talwin, and they were illegal in Illinois. So my dad decides they were super dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, incredibly dangerous. And my mom would take 8 or 9 of them at a time, and then she'd
Jesus.
wash them down with NyQuil.
Oh my God.
My mom was freaking nuts. She was absolutely bonkers. And so my dad decides, you know what, I'm going to break this addiction of hers. We're going to move back to Chicago.
Okay.
And so I'm 12 years old. They drag me kicking and screaming. I don't want to go to a freaking shithole.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'd been back to visit family and stuff. And I know I didn't want to live there. But my dad decided that was the way to break this addiction. Well, my mom moved there, and all she had to do was call somebody up in Vegas, and they were just shipping her the pills. It didn't make any difference. Never stopped any.
Yeah.
So I was there, and we moved to Joliet, which was my dad's hometown. I mean, this is like the armpit of everywhere. It's like the only thing that it has to recommend itself is a giant prison where they put people to death.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm okay with that part, but the rest of it, I mean, I grew up in Vegas, and the big fun for everybody on a Friday night is to go bowling or, go steal a street sign. And unfortunately, for some reason, they kept putting the street sign up as it's my maiden name. There was a street. It's a very unusual name, but there's a street with my maiden name on it. And every single one of my family members, now this is my dad's family, would go and steal the street sign. And the idiots would keep putting another one back up, and they would just go steal it again. But this was their idea of fun.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the same junior high school as my dad. And it was like everybody, the style back there, like just their styles were they were probably 2-3 years behind of, out west. Yeah. So when I moved there, I was just like this sore thumb. And people are just looking at me like, what the hell is this chick wearing? Stuff like that. But I told my parents, I said, listen, if I get perfect grades at the end of this school year, you're going to buy me a plane ticket, and I'm going back to Las Vegas and finish the school year, ditch school. And so I think it was in 8th grade, 7th grade. We ditched school when Beetlejuice came out. And that was the only time I got in trouble. So we sat in the movie theater because everybody knew everybody. So, we hopped a bus to a completely different town to go and watch this movie, and we still got caught. So my parents were like, well, you still have to have perfect grades. You have to have better than perfect grades. I said, all right, I'll do it. So I did. And they bought me a plane ticket. My mom's going, she'll never go. So they drove me to O'Hare. And my mom, as I was walking onto that airplane, I was 13. No. As I was walking onto that airplane, my mom's going, she'll turn around. Don't worry about it. She'll turn around. I was like, I'm not turning back around. I got on an airplane at 13, and I moved back to Las Vegas. I left my parents in Chicago, where they belong.
And would you have other family in Vegas?
Well, my 17-year-old brother had moved out there earlier, and my older brother, he was 20 at that time. He had moved out there as well. No. But they lived in a worse ghetto than I ended up in. I mean, it was bad. So I lived with them for, it had to have been about 2 months. But the place was so dangerous. I was like, so I started looking for odd jobs, things like that, which I took a lot of. So I made myself look older. But let's face it, most of the time when somebody's paying you cash, they don't give a crap how old you are. So I cleaned offices, and I did all kinds of bizarre things. And I found a little apartment off of the Strip. It was on Danville Lane. I never forget that as long as I live. It was on Danville Lane, and it cost, I want to say it was like $250 a month. So if I wasn't working, I was in school. But I was living, by the time I was 13, I was living on my own. That was it. And I never moved back. So eventually, my brothers stayed where they were. But my parents moved back from Illinois I think it was about 8, 9 months after the three of us had already left. And they said, "Oh, well, we're just going to stay with you for a while, Kerrie." No, you're not. Go, go stay with your sons.
Yeah.
That's what I told them. I was like, you can't move in with me. And so that was it. They moved back there, and
Did the owner of the apartment know that you were that young?
they
Or
didn't care.
again, they didn't care?
They didn't care. It was one of those, and surprisingly, if you rent something off the strip, maybe not now, I don't know, but back then, early 90s, you rented something off the strip,
Mhm.
it's usually in a pretty bad place. Surprisingly, this place was, it wasn't dangerous. I mean, it wasn't the greatest place in the world, but it wasn't dangerous. I never had any problems or anything like that.
Okay.
And then I got I got an emergency driver's license, a hardship license when I was 14 and a half. And I bought my first car, and it was a Renault Alliance. And the thing would eat up alternators and voltage regulators like crazy. And I didn't have the money to fix it all the time. So I used to have to push start the damn thing by myself. So I'd push it, jump in, pop the clutch, except the apartment complex had speed bumps. So I'd have to get enough speed up between speed bump to get it going. And then I would drive to school, back to work, that kind of thing. But this was the kind of life that I lived,
Yeah.
and so but we were running wild for the most part. At 14, 15 years old, we were running wild. We did whatever we wanted. And then got my first job at 15 and a half at Disney. And I was paid $4.75 an hour. And I thought it was fantastic. But I still had to work a lot of other jobs, on the side and stuff like that. But I knew at that point that I had to graduate early because I had to be able to support myself, and it wasn't going to be through working at Disney for $4.75 an hour.
Yeah.
So I started taking classes. All my classes were AP classes, or back then they were called IB, International Baccalaureate classes. So I would have a weighted grade anyway. So I started taking an art class before school and a photography class after school. And then I would take classes at the community college that would count towards high school credit. And it was just after I turned 16, I graduated high school.
Nice.
But before then, when I was 15, like I said, we were 14. I mean, I'm not talking about my brothers. They were already going crazy. But my friends and I, we were running wild. And then I finally realized I'm a pretty damn good artist, and I'm really good at making fake IDs. So that's what I used to do. And I'd sell them for, $80 a pop, $80 to $100 a pop. And I realized that I could make rent that way, and I didn't have to work all these extra jobs. So that was a huge mistake.
The mistake was making the IDs because you got in trouble?
No, I never got caught.
Oh, right.
No, because what ended up happening was we had so much more free time on our hands that we got into so much trouble. We were so again, not going to name names. I'm sure everybody can figure this out. My first real boyfriend, I was 15 years old. He was 34. He was a magician. Just leave it at that. Yeah, he's actually well known for this. I didn't know it at the time. But, when I wasn't with him, our friends were running wild. We were bar hopping. We never got into drugs or anything like that. Or I shouldn't say that. I never did, because we were athletes. And, we were always, I think one of my brothers, I think, got involved with steroids at one time, but I'm not sure. But drugs it was never my thing. I think I smoked pot once when I was a teenager. I got really, really sick and paranoid, so I didn't do that anymore. But yeah, we were bar hopping. We were all over the strip. We were getting into so much trouble. And I mean, I don't mean by the police or anything like that, because none of us ever looked our age. But we were all over that town, and just places we shouldn't have been, things we shouldn't have been doing. A lot of my friends, fell into the stripper route or the prostitution route. That was
Yeah.
really, really common because that's strippers
Money.
in Vegas. That's serious money, very
Big
serious.
money maker.
But the problem was they would snort it all because that's a soul crushing job for
Yeah.
for most people. You know, I'm not saying for everybody. There are a lot of I know a lot of strippers who were doing it into their 30s and they loved it.
Yeah.
But like my best friend, she fell into it at 17. Sorry, 18. She was
Yeah.
18. And she got so involved with drugs. She turned to prostitution, just a mess. And then eventually, which is funny because she just got in touch with me a couple of years ago. I lost touch with her. And now she's a born again Christian and stuff like that. And,
Oh, wow.
to each their own, whatever.
Yeah.
But just for her, it was absolutely soul crushing. So a lot of the girls fall into the drugs. They're encouraged to drink with their customers, things like that. And it's for them, it was, well, like I said, for some people, it's great. For the majority of the people I know or knew, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was those Las Vegas, everybody sees like this beautiful thing on this beautiful part of the strip and things like that. Everything looks great. And you don't see the seedier, especially if a tourist, you don't see the seedier side of Las Vegas. And it's bad. That town, especially if you're a teenager, that town will eat you alive.
Yeah.
It'll eat you alive. And that's what happened to a lot of my friends.
So
So
how come you never, because you were a dancer, right? Like and how come you never got involved with the stripping and the prostitution? Because it should have been a lucrative opportunity.
I didn't have to.
Oh,
I
because you
just
did the fake IDs and that's how
I didn't have to. And then, I started college. Um, when I was 18, I broke up with that magician. I decided that he was just way too damn old for me, you know?
Yeah.
So by 18, I was already in college and stuff like that. And I was watching my friends fall to the wayside, and it was heartbreaking. It really was.
Yeah.
It was devastating. Um, so I don't know. I met this really great Canadian guy who's really sweet. He used to come down all the time and come visit me and everything. And one day asked me to marry him. And I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I'm not moving to Canada. It's not happening. It was Vancouver, but I was like, that's not happening, And then at 19, I met my husband. And that's 27 years ago.
Wow.
Well, almost 28. So
How long before you guys got married?
So this was the funny thing. This was hysterical. So I was born and raised Catholic, obviously. So I was holding out for this big church wedding. I was like, no, you need to, but he wouldn't convert. He wasn't raised with any religion at all. So I said, you need to be baptized, so we can get married in the church. And he's like, really don't want to do that. And I said, well, I really want you to. Yeah, it was a big, long, kind of long-standing joke between us. But then, oops, I got pregnant. And by then we had this really, really great business. So we were pulling in free and clear about $10,000 a week. And so
what business?
So my husband, I told you, he's an engineer. Well, he's also a hacker. And there was, so they used to, I met him in 94. And it was like 96, somewhere around there. Maybe a little bit later. They used to put out these devices where you could only connect to the internet. That was all they were for. They weren't a computer or anything like that. One of them was called the Eye Opener. And it was sold, I want to say it's almost exclusively by Circuit City. I want to say that. In any case, my husband, everything he buys, he takes apart. Literally everything the son of a bitch buys, he takes apart. It drives me insane. But this time he took it apart and he's looking at this and he's like, these people who made this are idiots. They're complete morons, because it was a personal computer without the hard drive. And so my husband created a kit. He hacked the thing. So he turned it into a $99 personal computer. So people were just wiping all of these electronic stores out of these things. So we decided, well, let's just make a kit for it, right? So that's what we did. So we had them, being purchased by school districts who couldn't afford, full, you know, complete computers, things like that. So they would purchase all we did was sell, it was a modified board and a bracket, and they would just put a mini hard drive in there. Boom, they had a $99 personal computer. Every school in the country wanted it.
Oh.
So, and you should have seen it. So we're in our living room. We're in our living room packaging up all this crap. I mean, I had my stepson working on it, and he was like, I know he must have been about 5 or 6. He would put the little screws in the bag and stuff like that. I had boxes for shipping from floor to ceiling in my house. And mind you, we have vaulted ceiling, like 18-foot ceilings. They were you had to make a path through my living room.
How much were the kits like that people were to buy from you guys?
So honestly, they were like $40, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
They're like $39.99. And we had a great metal guy, and everything that we did was we just had really, really great people working with us,
Yeah.
so Mauser was great, to get all our little parts and things like that. But we had this crap piled floor to ceiling. I would have to have mail trucks. I mean, truck after truck after truck come by, to pick all this crap up. I'm just like pushing this shit out. And I mean, luckily we had some really good mail carriers, but yeah, so I'm holding out, right? So I'm holding out for this big wedding. And then my brother gets married, and it cost him $40,000 for his wedding. 40 grand.
And this is in the 90s. Oof.
In the 90s. Well, they're both doctors.
Okay.
So it's not like they couldn't afford it, but they also have massive, even to this day, they have massive student debt.
Yeah.
And so we went to the wedding, and it was a beautiful wedding. Don't get me wrong. They got married in the Catholic Church. The priest was really, really drunk and kept stepping on my sister-in-law's train. It was fantastic. It was like the best wedding I've ever been to. The priest was just falling down drunk. He was Irish. Fantastic. I swear to God, if I was going to get married in the church, I'd be feeding my priest a lot of wine. Tons of it. You can step on my train, go right ahead, just entertain the audience. It was great. But within a year, they were divorced.
Oh, damn! Spend that much on a wedding and get divorced in a year.
40, and it was at least 40,000 divorced in a year. And Ken's like, "You sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "No, let's go ahead and take that money and buy a house."
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And so we've owned that place for, Jesus Christ, 21 years now.
Yeah.
And that's in Vegas. So we still have that house, and my sister-in-law lives there. So you know the story of that one.
Can you tell it for the audience?
Okay. So it was 2 years ago. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was living in California, and I had minor children. My brother this is my middle brother, decided to move in with my dad because he had a really serious drinking problem. Again, I would still say it probably wasn't drugs, but I don't know for sure. In any case, he had a really serious drinking problem, but he also was the only one that could get my dad to treatments. Because again, I lived here. I couldn't drive out there every single day to take my dad to go and have, his treatments for cancer. So the deal was that my brother would live in my dad's house. And this was actually, I should be fair. He actually lived off and on with my dad. And now my brother at this year he's 50. So that'll give you an idea. But he's lived off and on in my dad's house for the past 10 years. But we had him move in there permanently with the understanding, we don't give a shit if you drink at night. Just make sure that dad gets to his treatments. Okay. Yeah. And, we'll pay you and all that stuff, which is what we did. And then I can't tell you honestly how long it was going on for, because my dad is kind of secretive. But last year, Halloween is a really, really big thing for our family. So
cosplay.
Last year, what's that?
I said cosplay.
Yeah, cosplay, exactly. I mean, you got to come out for a convention. That one coming up in January.
I'm going to Level Up Expo it's in Vegas, but it's in February. Oh, yeah. You're going to?
We're going to.
I'll see you guys there.
Yeah, but so I wake up on Halloween morning to this crazy text message from my brother. And I hadn't talked to him for 2 years because he just kept pissing me off with his freaking drinking and everything. And I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years. I kept paying him to go and through my other brother, I'd give my other brother money and he would take care of it. Because my oldest brother, he was living back then between Vegas and Costa Rica. So both of us logistically, it was a bad situation. So I wake up to this text message from my brother, ranting about my brother's best friends. Um, both of them are Jewish, really great, fantastic guys. Known them since I was like, a couple years old. This rant about how he's going to kill these Jews and talking about how he was Connor McLeod of Highlander and we killed him off. I mean, it was, and Ken's like, what is he talking about? And I said, honey, I don't know. I don't talk crazy. I don't understand. I don't understand crazy. So from that morning, it started where he started abusing my father. About mid-October, my dad calls me and says, Kerrie, he's gone crazy. I've had to run out of the house and down the street. And I said, what's going on? He said, he's going crazy in my house. So I'm in Huntington Beach calling 911 in Las Vegas to get them out there. My dad, mind you, now I told you he's going through massive treatment for stage 4 cancer. I mean, it's systemic. He had it. It was lung. It was skin cancer. It started as skin cancer. It was lung. It was liver. It was blood. I mean, he was a mess. So the police don't even show up. Luckily, my oldest brother was in Vegas at the time. He went and picked my dad up. The police never even showed up.
Jeez.
And I'm going, my dad's in danger. So this went on for, until the end of October. And my dad was raised in a different generation. So he seems to think that women are slightly incapable. So they kept trying to get the police to do something for them. And I kept telling my dad, I was like, listen, all you have to do is tell me to come out there and I'll come out there and take care of it. He's like, you can't do anything. We've tried everything. My oldest brother said the same thing. There's nothing you can do. I was like, okay. I was like, you call me when you want something done. So they ended up arresting my brother. But he said that he needed help. He wanted to go to the hospital. So they put him in an ambulance and my dad was able to go back home. So I was on the phone with him. This was November 4th. I was on the phone with him late at night. And he's like, Kerrie, I'm so glad that he's gone. I know he's in jail, this and that. And all of a sudden he says, my lights just went out. Everything just went out. My internet's gone, everything. I said, Dad, you need to hang up and call 911 and I'm going to do the same thing. And he's like, no, I think it's okay. It's probably just a breaker. Well, my brother had popped the main breaker on the side of the house, and yanked out every internet cable that went into the house. He yanked them out. And he did it again at the street. He was just, and so my dad ran out again. The police showed up and they said, we can't do anything. Now they can hear him. My dad had 9-foot sliding glass doors in the back of his house. I mean, they're huge. He broke every single one of those doors to get in the house. And unfortunately, when my dad ran out of the house, he left the new combination for his gun safe in his pockets because he had to run out in his pajamas and he put the new combination of the gun safe in his pocket pants and he left the pants. My dad, to this day, he has an arsenal. I mean, we're talking about every kind of gun that you can imagine. He has it, probably more than one. So here my brother is inside this house with this arsenal, right? We're hoping, we're praying to God that he doesn't get into the freaking safe, right?
Yeah.
Manages not to. But the police, they said, we can't do anything. There's nothing we can do.
Because he lives there?
Because he lives there. He has tenant rights. My dad's going, you can hear him. He's destroying the house. Nothing. They can do anything. So finally I'm like, what the fuck do you want me to do? Enough already. Why don't you just let me come out there and take care of it? So my husband and I went out there and we talked to our city councilman, who happens to be one of our best friends and neighbors. He called the sheriff's department. They said, we can't do anything about it. I said, what would you do if you were us? He said, between you and me, I'd go in their arms and I'd take them out. And so that's what we tried to do. But when we went there, he opened fire on us. So,
And hid behind the car and shootout.
well, he was inside. He was shooting from a window.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
you guys hid behind the car, and then
my husband was right up there, and well, they told me to record it. So I was farther back. So I was actually within the line of fire. My brother's a bad shot. So
okay,
I wasn't all that concerned about it. But so he was shooting from the window. I was in the line of fire, but I was recording the whole thing. But yeah, by then, of course, the police were like, okay, now we can do something. Well, no shit, assholes. Why didn't you take care of it before it came to this?
yeah,
But it was very funny. So if you want to, I'll send you some pictures of the standoff, and you can share it with the audience if you want. But
yeah,
we,
please.
we had SWAT and helicopters and canine and armored cars. I swear. And I was like, what? Why do you need so much for one guy? And they're like, well, you know, we get paid, and these cars and all these people just sit around and do nothing. This is training for us.
Oh, yeah,
So in any case, he got 2 years probation he was actually had 9 counts of attempted murder against him, and they dropped it down to aggravated assault and firing a weapon from a structure or vehicle.
God.
And he got 2 years probation.
No, so no jail time, even just.
Well, after he was arrested, he served about 2 months in jail before he was able to. So so he got 2 months or he got 2 years probation, and he actually seemed to be doing better. Got a job, and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden, earlier this year, I started getting crazy text messages from him again.
Yeah.
So every time he would send me something, I'd block him, but he'd just get a new number.
Hmm.
But in any case, we found out just this past month, my sister-in-law called me. She was terrified. She was like, the kids are looking for their dad. It's my brother. And I said, I don't know where the hell he is. I don't talk to him. I told you, I don't speak crazy.
Yeah.
And she's like, we can't find. Well, he's back in jail. And it's like, could you at least keep him there at this point? I mean, because Brian, I'm sorry, his name is Brian. Brian is the kind of guy that, the huge Vegas massacre,
Yeah.
given the chance that he could get his hands on weapons like that, he would do that.
Jesus.
He's that crazy. He would do that. He's super paranoid. He's schizophrenic.
Oh, so that's where the crazy text messages come from. He was just in one of those.
And the problem with schizophrenics apparently is that as soon as they feel better, they stop taking their medication. And I keep telling everybody in Vegas, I'm like, you better watch out for this guy. You're going to be sorry one day, because he's going to shoot something up, and it's going to be a great loss of life. And he will be able to get his hands on guns. They're easy to get your hands on illegally. You need a little bit of money. You need a little bit of money, and you need a little bit of crazy to do something like that. And he doesn't have the money right now, thank God, but he's got plenty of the crazy. So, but that's why my sister-in-law is living in my house in Vegas, because our city councilman lives on the same street. So police, they patrol there regularly. So our street is well protected. So she and the kids are protected.
So this was about. So I guess there's a big time gap between the time where you were having a wedding and the time that this happened. Anything else crazy happened in between those 2 periods of time?
Well, I mean, which wedding? I mean, Ken and I got married 5 years after we got engaged. So I was 24. Alex was born already, my oldest daughter. So she was already born. She was a year old. Then, of course, we had another kid, and marital bliss, I don't know exactly what else to say. But I kind of think if I hadn't met my husband when I did, I'm almost afraid of, what would have happened to me, where I would have ended up with, because it's not like I completely abandoned my friends, when they turned to sex work and stuff like that. I didn't, because I was very used to it in Las Vegas. Just keep thinking, what would have ended up? How would I have ended up?
Well, you were going to college, and you already. So what were you going to college for? What was the
biology?
Oh, okay.
You know what I became?
What?
An accountant.
Oh yeah. Wait. So pretty much everyone on my outside of 30 people here, like the other 5,000 subscribers, they're all having trouble finding accountants to work on them for crypto because like it's such a weird way that nobody knows how to write off. Hey, this was like a rug pull as a pump and dump. Can we write that off? Is it something where, we lost, yeah, a lot of money went through our account and we bought this, but then now it's not worth anything. Um,
That's
how
a good
familiar are you?
question. I'm not, but I could probably find out. I could probably take a class on it. I mean, most of these things. So I specialize in. So we have a state tax here, and it's run by what's called the Franchise Tax Board. Franchise Tax.
Mhm.
And I just happened to fall into it. I was working for about a mid-size tech company, and he got audited,
Mhm.
and they were worse than the IRS. And this was the first time I ever had to deal with them. And so I was like, okay, we'll work through this. So I had to go through record after record after record. They wanted to make sure that he was charging tax, the California state tax, properly. And so I gotten in touch with one of the guys at the tax board, and he came down. He actually helped me. He walked me through the process for the audit. I was like, okay, I understand this. So a lot of it is not something that you learn in school or in class or anything like that. You can take classes on it. You're not going to learn it until you're tits deep in it.
Yeah.
Excuse me for saying, but that's probably the same thing with crypto. I can
Yeah.
look into it though, and see
Yeah.
what I can
Um,
see what I can learn, but I can't see that. Yeah, I'll look into it. I don't want to make any comments without. Uh,
yeah, no, that's fair. A lot of us right now are really just thinking, well, I'm not selling right now. I just, I sold everything else. Like I sold my Tesla stocks, sold my Pokemon cards, sold pretty much everything for crypto. But I won't sell really until next year when I have to pay the taxes on everything I sold this year. But most people are thinking, okay, in order to avoid this, they're just going to buy places in Portugal or Puerto Rico where there is no crypto tax and just set up an LLC over there and that type of thing. I don't know if you do that though, if the IRS would get pissed. They say like, hey, you're cashing out over there and not paying those
yeah,
taxes.
I would be careful with that. Without really really good advice, you
Yeah,
you don't want the IRS on your ass.
yeah.
You just they're a nightmare. Not as bad as California though.
Well,
Um, I mean, like for instance, like all I can tell you is like for where my brother is in Costa Rica. He's with a lot of expats there.
mhm,
Um, and you can make up to $90,000 completely tax free there
okay,
every year. And then you get taxed there.
yeah,
So I know that there are most definitely areas that you can find tax breaks, but I'm pretty sure that I would not just consult an accountant. I would consult an attorney,
that's
several
a
in
good point.
fact.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, but I'm sure that there are tax havens that I know that we had a friend of ours. Uh, Jesus, I want to say that he kind of cashed out at Turks and Caicos. Um,
okay.
so I know that he did that. But then again, he was crazy too. He was the kind of guy that would drive around with a tag on his or a sign on his window that said, "I have a constitutional right to travel," because he didn't want to register his car.
Uh,
I'm telling you, this is what Vegas turns out, guys. Okay.
I-
I'm telling you, this is the majority of what Vegas turns out is people like this. People like this and my brother. But I would not do anything without consulting an attorney.
that's a
Nothing.
good point.
I
Uh,
mean, an accountant is great for doing your taxes, and I can guide you through audits. If you owe the IRS $6,000, I can probably negotiate 10% of it. I can do
yeah,
those kinds of things.
okay.
What I can't do is give you legal advice.
Yeah, no, no, I feel you. I'll let you know what my accountant says this year. I know I'm gonna have to pay like 100 grand this year. It's gonna be stupid. Um, so I'll let you know. How easy is it to get a extension? Like if I instead of paying in April, pay in October.
Okay, so you can get an extension. It's very, very easy to do.
Okay,
But
cool.
but if you owe the taxes in April, you're
Hmm.
still going to owe them in October.
Yeah, yeah.
And
The reason why I was saying that is because the crypto, the OMI, the whole convention where I was at, where we met last month. it's not really getting on exchanges until probably January, and I want to give it a little time to run up before I, cash out a little bit to pay for them.
So the other option is, have you talked to an attorney about an LLC?
I have two already, and
So
they do run through the account.
through which states do you have your LLC?
They're both in New York.
Okay. No.
Get
There are
one
only,
somewhere else.
there are only two states that you want an LLC through. Delaware is one, Nevada is the other.
Okay.
They're fantastic. They're the two states that you want to have your LLC through. Your tax liability drops way down to about, I know that when we set ours up, it was about 15%.
Oh,
It
okay.
was like the cap of what you could pay in taxes. So if you can find out, talk to an attorney again.
Yeah.
They're the best. Switch it to Delaware or switch it to Nevada, one or the other.
Okay.
You can choose Delaware. It's closer to you, obviously. Nevada's easy, but those are the two states you want to incorporate.
The audience is listening. Duly noted. Okay. So yeah, that's again. I don't mind paying taxes, although I do. I hate it. It's
I
just
do.
I do. It's just at some point when you have, let's say when you have like millions of dollars and you have to pay millions in tax, it's like, oh my God, it's too much. It's too much. I hate it. But so in going back between Huntington and Vegas, have your girls ever been to Vegas, like lived there, or has it just been like vacation for cons?
Well, they were both born in Vegas.
Okay.
Shit, I'm trying to think now. Yes, so we're here 10 years. Holland's 7. So my youngest was 7 when we moved here, and my oldest was 14.
Oh.
My youngest, she almost doesn't even remember Las Vegas. My
Yeah.
oldest does, of course. She hated it.
Yeah.
So every time I have to go back there to like make a repair on the house or something, like Jesus, right before summer, and you know how the summers are in Vegas, get to 120 easy.
Yeah.
Air conditioning decides to go out. Thank God it went out when it did, because now with the supply chain issues, it's like
Oh,
3 or 4 times. It's like 3 or 4 times the amount to fix it. So I called around and I got a few estimates. The guy, one of them's like, yeah, well, it's about $20,000, and I'm like, I'll sell that in a house before I pay $20,000 to replace an air conditioner. So I finally got a good old, excuse me. So I finally got a good old local guy. We all consider ourselves battle-born, whether we were actually born there or not. We're all battle-born. We all have the same the first 3 numbers of our social security number are all the same for all of us who are considered natives.
Yeah.
In fact, we have this really goofy club. Not that I belong to it because my brother does, but in any case, this was one of the guys that he grew up the same time that I did. So he knew, his family knew my family and stuff like that. And he's like, I'll do it for $5,000. I was like, sold. Get out there and take care of it now. He had it done the same day. It was great. But just so unless I have to go out there to make repairs, they want no part of Vegas at all. I'm like, would you guys like to switch places? Osa and the kids, they can come and stay here in Huntington, and we go stay in our house, and I can enjoy the pool during the summer.
Yeah.
I can lay out topless if I want to, and it doesn't make a damn difference. Well, it probably wouldn't make a difference here either.
Yeah.
I mean, you get plenty of surfers who end up pulling everything off to getting their wetsuits off and stuff like that. And I don't think it would matter. But the girls are like, nope, want no part of it. And I said, okay. So we would go stay in a nice hotel while I did, repairs on the house, or, dealt with my crazy brother, or, something like that. And they still didn't want it. It's like, you're in a freaking hotel. You're in a suite. You have room service. You have a swimming pool. What the hell else do you want? We want to go home.
Oh my God. So maybe it's like a generational thing, because I love Vegas. I'm also old enough to, have fun. But I think when you're younger and you have like your online friends, and maybe in Vegas, you don't have that same setup, or on your computer, they don't have their headphones, and do they game?
Oh yeah. Like crazy.
Oh, okay. So,
crazy.
yeah.
Now we can't travel anywhere unless they have an Xbox or a PlayStation. I'm happy with my friggin' Switch. They have to have a whole setup. It's great. Just kidding. I'm just bad. So But like when I was a kid growing up in Vegas, my mom would bring us to the Strip when we would drive through the Strip and we'd see the Silver Slipper, which nobody's ever going to remember that. But Circus, things like that. One time, I don't remember what year it was. Uh, my mom put us up on the roof of our house and we watched the MGM burn.
Oh,
Do you
what year
remember
was
that?
that? No, what year
You're
was
too
that?
young for that. I can't remember now. I was pretty young, maybe 81,
Okay,
82.
yeah,
Something. I don't remember the exact year, but I know I was really small. That's why she put us up on the roof. And we watched the MGM burn. We didn't
how,
know how bad it was at the time, of
how bad
course.
was it? Like I wasn't even
It was
around, so
devastating. It was
yeah,
devastating. It was horrible. Um, they said that just a huge fireball just ripped through the casino. There were people jumping from the roof, and from where we were watching, of course, it just looked like another fire. But
yeah.
that was the kind of crap that was entertaining to us when we were kids in Vegas. I told you.
Hey, look at that. Yeah,
I mean, it was like I said, you turn out some strange people from Vegas. But
yeah.
like our house, I did make a decision. I grew up pretty far down south. I grew up on a ranch down south, away from the strip. Um, but I made the decision that when we did buy a house, it was going to be far the frig away from the strip. So I bought way up by the northern mountains, and we had nothing around us at the time. Now, of course, it's all built up. They've just built
Yeah.
from mountain to mountain. They're building in Red Rock, which is a protected area. They're building right up to Red Rock.
Yeah.
Pisses me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you ever, me and my friends had this idea. We didn't do it because the whole thing kind of lost steam. But our plan was, I think in 2018 or 2019, when all of those, hey, let's invade Area 51 memes came out. Me and a bunch of my friends that I used to serve with, my friend Delisha was still stationed at Nellis at the time.
Oh,
And so we were gonna go and we were gonna just meet up there. We're gonna go to a mountain that was like really close to like the gate, and we would
I
set up
remember.
like some George Foreman grills, have like coolers of beer, and we would try to watch people Naruto run like to their deaths. But then
I
like
remember.
after a while, like there was too much time in between when memes started, and so there wasn't that many people there. So none of us did it. Did you like cover that? Did you watch anything? Um, did you? No, you didn't go there to look
I
to
knew.
look.
I know plenty of people that worked at Groom Lake. Um, just whatever is there is we're not supposed to know about right now.
Okay, okay,
Whatever, whatever's there, I can guarantee that whatever's there is not. Well, let's just put it this way. I want to know what it is. I think I have an idea, but I'm not going to
what's
say
the
it because
idea?
then you just,
Okay,
I'm not going to say
okay. I want to believe, man. I love aliens. I love that stuff.
I do believe. I can't believe that we're the only people or the only beings that manage to survive somewhere. I just don't get it. But I mean, everybody's different. Um, but I mean, my father was just, this is going to make my father sound crazy, but I promise my brother got crazy from my mom, not from my dad.
Okay.
But when they were still living in Illinois, I was a baby, I guess. My dad was a truck driver, and
Mhm.
an over the road truck driver. And my dad is like the most common sense um, kind of person in the world. And he was driving, he finally got off shift and he was driving home and he was on some freeway. And I couldn't tell you what because I don't know Illinois that well.
Yeah.
But they lived in Wheeling, so somewhere in suburb of Chicago. My dad sees this thing in the sky and he pulls over along with all these other people. And they're watching this thing. And he said it was just a bright light. There wasn't any shining lights or anything weird like that. And all these people are standing around looking at it. And my dad says, the guy next to him, he goes, "What do you see there?" The guy looks at my dad and he's like, "What do you see?" He didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing just sort of went, choo. So my dad's like, "Oh, I'm just going, I must be overtired or something," along with everybody else that was pulled over on a freeway, standing on a bridge. And he goes home and he gets in the house and he's like, "Elaine," that's my mom's name. He's like, "You're not going to believe what I saw." And he tells her, and they're talking at the open door, and she's going, "You're nuts." He goes, "No, I swear to God, I saw it right." He's like, "Here it comes." And the thing, I guess, was around the area where they could see it. The neighbors were out, all of everything. and nobody would talk about it for like 30 years. It was
Really?
crazy. Yeah, nobody would talk about it. So nobody wanted to be crazy. And the news
Yeah.
did put out there like it was a weather balloon at night
Yeah.
in a suburb of Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't, but I'll definitely never label myself as that. I mean, I don't disbelieve. I don't have any proof.
yeah. No, same.
So
Um,
leave it
yeah.
at that.
I had
But
somebody that I used to serve with that was in he was in security forces, and he had in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's a really weird underground level where everyone like knows about, but nobody ever goes there because you need a certain security level clearance. And he had that, so he would work down there sometimes, and he happened to work with a guy that also worked at Area 51, and is like you can't ask him about anything, but he said like if I ever run into that guy again, I'm asking him like everything because he was so curious like that whole time, and I'm like, oh, I would be also. Um, yeah, I want to believe. I want that. I mean, most likely it's just aircraft and just new technologies or whatever. But
my brother, I can tell you that one of the things that I do know for sure. My brother dated a girl when we were in high school. Her father was a general, and he worked at
Army,
Area.
Air Force.
I don't remember what he was, but he was. I mean, he was way up there.
Yeah.
But he was a general. I mean, he was a colonel. I can't remember now, but he was a big monkey muck. He had retired, and when he worked at Groom Lake, and so we were always like, "What did you see there? What did you see?" And he's like, "I saw things that would make your blood curdle, and that's all I'm going to say."
Oh,
So I
see
don't think
that.
it's I don't think it's just aircraft,
Yeah,
but I
see
don't
that.
know what.
That type of thing would make me really. I remember this one documentary on History Channel back when it was just normal History Channel and not when it was Ancient Aliens, where it was this one old guy. This guy was like 77 or 80 something years old at the time, and this was a while ago. He said during the Roswell incident, what was that was what like early 90s, or I'm sorry, early 1900s or late
No,
1800s.
in the Roswell when they said the aircraft crashed,
Yeah.
I think it was in the 50s or something.
Oh, okay, so maybe it wasn't that old, but whatever happened was this person was young at the time. Maybe it was before then. Whatever Roswell, regardless of what it was, this guy was like 12 years old at the time, and he had seen it. And his parents told him like, "Hey, like we don't know what this is. Go back to the house." So of course he didn't go back to the house, and and he saw people carrying out like whatever was kept being carried out on a stretcher was covered. And I mean, I don't know why you would take a piece of machinery out on a stretcher. So I guess maybe it's a body, but maybe that thing that they got didn't die, and maybe they figured out how to like clone it or whatever. Or if that's a thing that happens, and the blood curdling thing is, and there's beings there, and they're trapped and they're doing experiments on. I mean, that just kind of goes in line with that. I don't.
Yeah, I couldn't say either way. Like I said, if I don't
Yeah,
see it, I have a tough time, endorsing it. My
yeah.
well, my mom was after the whole thing in Illinois. My mom was a big UFO buff, and my mom was, and when I say like that, and she said, "Well, you don't see God either, but you believe in Him." And be like, how can I argue with that? I
Okay,
mean,
fair point.
it's a good point, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what goes on there. I have um, especially living in Las Vegas, people go out there all the time. And everybody has their own stories. I don't think I may have gone out there when I was a teenager. Who knows? I was probably drunk.
Do,
Um,
do you remember Amber? Amber Reese. She was on Facebook for like a while. We dated back in the day. Um, she went to Vegas, and she had I think she might have lived in Huntington as well, in
oh,
California. Anyway, she went to or no, I was in San Diego. I'm sorry, but she went out there, and she took a rental car, and her one of her tires got like she hit over a rock or whatever, and the tire that was like flat, and she had like the spare in the back. The car jack that she had, it wouldn't turn, like the lug nuts, it wouldn't turn, it was broken or whatever. So she's like, there is no cell phone reception out here. I am stuck. There was like a random gopher next door. She's like, I'm thinking about eating it. Like it was ridiculous. So eventually it finally came off, and she got the tire on. She's like, oh my God. Like, but she said, yeah, I thought I was going to like die out there. And I was, and she told me about it, and I was like, well, I haven't heard from her in a while. And she said she was going to Area 51. I was like, oh, yeah. So I was like, oh man. So I was thinking about like going out there. I was like, but like, hey guys, Air Force, can we, if you captured her, like swear she's like she's a nice person. But luckily she got back before I went out. So that was cool. Did you ever have any?
That is the loneliest highway I've ever driven in my life. The highway between Las Vegas and Arizona.
Oh.
It is easily sorry. I broke my thumb, and I refused to let them put a cast on me. They insisted that they did, and I told them they put a fucking cast on me. They're going to come home and cut it off with tin snips. So that's why I'm looking like a freaking cyborg here.
How'd you break your thumb?
Don't ask. I tripped over a Christmas box.
Oh. Rip.
I decorate extensively for Christmas, and I have boxes everywhere up until about the 15th, and it was late at night, and I came out for a midnight snack, and boom. But anyway, go ahead. What were you saying?
For any of your properties, or any of, I was like I said, down there, there's some places. I don't know if there's Indian reservations down there, but have you ever had any hauntings?
No, but and here's another thing. I'm not really big on believing in ghosts, but the place I'm living in now was built at the turn of the century, and it's friggin' freaky.
So it's the turn of the century, like 1900? Oh.
Before, so this place was built, I want to say it was 1897. So this place that I'm living in now in Huntington was built in 1897. And this place is really, really messed up. I mean, big time. You see things move. My husband is, like I said, not religious, does not believe in ghosts, does not believe in anything like that. And he always goes to sleep earlier than I do because I'm a night owl. But he would insist that there was always somebody standing in the doorway. It was a woman, a tall woman, and I'm 5 foot nothing.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, and he insisted on it. And I'm like, you're loony. But out of the, like the way I'm sitting on the couch, there's a hallway down this way.
Yeah.
And out of the corner of my eye, I would see people walk back and forth in the hallway. And I'm like, what are you guys doing now? Nobody, everybody's asleep.
Oh, no.
So the place is creepy. I definitely am not looking forward to staying here much longer.
Yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't mind moving away from the beach. I'm just not a big beach person. It's too cold.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not either. I'm not a strong swimmer.
I am, but it's cold and miserable. And there are sharks. Lots of sharks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would not be okay with that. I mean, so here's what I also like. I don't know if you guys hike out there or whatever. I did some hiking out when I was in New Jersey when I was stationed at McGuire Air Force Base, and I actually had a run-in with a couple of bobcats, and they're only like 30 something pounds. Like they're not these crazy big things. They're not like mountain lions that are like 70, 100 pounds. But it's still like if both of them really wanted to, if they really wanted to like attack, like they could do some damage. Yeah, they could do some damage. So I was like, all right, and I don't know. Do you ever go hiking? There are mountain lions out there. What's wildlife out near you?
So the only time we've been hiking here, we went hiking in these mountains in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But at the time, I guess it was where they filmed MASH, and Ken was one of our favorite shows together.
Yeah, it was a great show.
So we were like, well, let's go check out the old sets and stuff. So we start hiking out there, and I just get this really eerie feeling. And I said, we've gone far enough, I said, I don't know how far it is to get to that site, but we need to go back. It was getting really, really hot too. And the three of them, they can't handle the heat anymore. I don't know. It's like they never lived in Vegas or something. So
Okay.
we turned back and we left, and it turns out they had a freaking serial killer up there. At the
Oh,
time that we were there, they had a serial killer up there. There was a poor guy when camping with his two young daughters. The,
oh
the
no.
serial killer opens the freaking flap of the tent, and blows the father away.
Oh no.
And he'd been shooting across the road. He was freaking sniper. And
Damn.
I was so glad we didn't go there. But in Las Vegas, when we first built our house, like I said, we were the only ones out there. And our very back wall is like 150 feet long. And at night, I would go out there when I smoked. I go out there to smoke. And one night I go out there and I see something on the top of the wall. And it was just where it's getting warmer, but it was still pretty. The nights were really cool. And I see something move like this. And I'm like, what the frick is this thing? And I flip the lights on. It's a big old mountain lion laying on top of our brick wall.
Oh.
And the reason is because it was warm still from the sun. And I was
Oh.
an idiot. I would leave my dog's dog food outside, and they were coming for the dog food. So,
Oh
but
no.
out here, where we live, and we're downtown Huntington Beach. We're right by the beach. We have possums, lovely things, raccoons, squirrels, just all those things. And we have a really serious coyote problem.
Uh,
They, they like to eat small dogs and cats and things like that.
we
They,
need some big dogs.
they've been known to eat. They've been known to attack people here. If they're walking their
Uh,
dog on a leash, they'll attack the people first before they get to the dog.
oh
So
damn.
I've never encountered that with a coyote in Nevada.
Yeah.
And we have lots of them, of course. We
Yeah,
coyote.
I don't like coyotes. They're like tricky. I've heard stories of where they'll pretend like they're playing with the dog to like lure them out so that the rest of the pack that's in hiding come and like ambush. Yeah.
Coyotes, coyotes are actually relatively. They don't hunt in packs.
Mm,
Wolves hunt in packs. Coyotes will hunt one or two, and if it's two, it's usually a male and a female. It's usually a match set there.
yeah.
So usually when you encounter a coyote, if you make yourself big and make a lot of noise, they're going to run.
Yeah.
I had one. It was actually just a few weeks ago. Um, I was just putting the cushions away for the night. And I had one come right up to me.
Oh wow. How'd you act? How'd you like? Oh okay. And then
And he just went, whoop! They're
okay.
not, they're not very big dogs.
Yeah.
They're not big, but if they're desperate and they're hungry, that's when you have to be, concerned. I'm used to coyotes. I've dealt with them, of course, all my life in the valley in Las Vegas. Rattlesnakes, scorpions, all kinds of fun things. But yeah, so the stuff out here is just like woodland crap for the most part.
Okay. All right.
But I gotta tell you, I really don't like possums.
No, they eat ticks.
I know, but they're awful looking. They're so awful. I had one. So we have a courtyard. We have a fence, around the courtyard, and apparently they can make themselves really small because one stuck its head underneath the fence, and I screamed so loud because I'd never seen one before. I've seen them on the side of the road here, but I'd never seen one before, and they're so ugly. And I screamed, and it just took off.
Yeah.
But we have a set of raccoons here. They just come right into the courtyard as neat as they want. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They don't give a crap. They're just and they stand up and do this.
Oh.
They want food. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm not feeding you. Get out of here.
Raccoons are really smart.
Yeah, they are.
Raccoons can figure out stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom used to say that they used to try to lock their trash cans because they'd have raccoons. They can actually like unscrew like jars and crap.
Yeah. Yeah, they're crazy. I don't know how they teach that to like their young or the kids.
I don't know.
They're really fun.
It's like I don't know. It's like, excuse me, let me just take you aside, son. So you can. This is what you do when you break into someone's can. You make yourself really big. You hiss at them, and scare the crap out of them. Then they'll just run away, and you can just dig through the shit in their cans all you want. Because they'll tear things apart. They'll knock cans down. I really kind of like them, but I'm not going to feed them. Like,
They're cute as
Yeah.
babies. The raccoons. They're adorable.
With adults too. I
That's
mean,
true.
I would have one as a pet if I could, but there are certain things that Ken says I can't have. So
Oh
raccoons are on the list. Snakes are another thing. I'm not allowed to have snakes. Ken doesn't like snakes.
no, he doesn't like snakes. Okay.
Nope.
Um,
I had rats once. He hated those. Rats are fantastic pets.
rats
But
are
yeah,
really smart too.
I know. That's
Yeah.
why he hated them because they would escape they would escape their cage. Ken sleeps with his arm hanging off the bed, right? And
Yeah.
they would always manage to find his arm to climb up the bed to get to me. And then they would curl around my neck.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
they're really great pets, but we just lost our last guinea pig on the second.
Oh.
It was
Oh yeah,
horrible.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it,
post.
it, it was bad. Just the girls were devastated. And you wouldn't think much about guinea pigs because I was when they first got the first guinea pig, I was like, why the hell do you want a guinea pig? They don't do anything. Apparently, they are actually really, really cuddly and
Hmm.
nice.
Oh, that's why.
But he was 6 years old,
Yeah.
so I mean, it was just that time.
Yeah.
In any
Uh,
case,
so for Level Up Expo, I have it where he says Las Vegas Convention Center.
mhm.
What hotel is good to stay around there, or it's really close?
You know what? I don't even know what they've torn down and rebuilt at this point. Um, because I think at one time it was the Sands too, but I think
Mhm.
that I think the Hilton has one that close to there.
Okay.
If it's still even standing, because I don't know, I always stay at the same hotel when I go.
Yeah.
If it's still standing, it's probably a pretty rundown place.
Okay. All right.
But
Uh,
here's the thing: any hotel that you're going to stay out on the strip or anything like that is going to have a shuttle to the convention center.
that's a good point.
It's going to be a free shuttle.
Yeah.
Um, and Uber is cheap, so things like that I would consider.
That's
But
true.
I would I would be more concerned with the hotel that you're staying at than I would about the convention center. So Las
Okay.
Vegas, plenty of transportation. You have to work.
Yeah, that's a good. That's a good
No
point.
buses. That kind of public transportation just sucks in
Okay.
Las Vegas. Don't count on a bus or anything. But you can get a taxi anywhere, and they should have free shuttles. Check with the hotel that you're going
Yeah.
to. Well, did you go on their website? Because I didn't even check, but
I didn't even buy tickets yet. I didn't buy a flight. I didn't get anything yet.
because they
Um.
usually have a host hotel.
Oh, okay. Cool.
You know,
That'd be pretty fun.
if you go on their website, they almost always have a host hotel. Like we're going to ALA, and their host hotel is the Hyatt Regency.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
um, and that's on the January 6th. And
Okay.
then, oh my God, then there's Anime Impulse. We have like 6 days to do a quick turnaround on cosplay, and six
Oh.
days later we have to be at Anime Impulse.
Oh. So that's on Saturday. You said. Is that?
What's that?
You said Anime Impulse on Saturday. This Saturday.
No, Anime Impulse is going to be January 15th, I think.
Oh, so it's the week after the
So
other one. That.
yeah, because Anime Los Angeles, which is finally back, thank God. Anime Los Angeles is the 6th through the 9th, and then we have to do really like a super quick turnaround to do Anime Impulse. And that's
What are you guys cosplaying nowadays? What are your plans?
I don't cosplay unless the girls ask me to.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. But so they have asked me to cosplay twice with them at NALA. So I'm going to do Lady Muzan again.
Okay.
And then we're doing Yuri on Ice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they're going to be Yuri and Victor, and I'm just going to be Yuri Plasetsky, Yuri,
Okay.
the other Russian, which suits me perfectly because he's such a little asshole. Perfect for me.
um, I'll be if I can get big enough, I'm going to try to do Bane, DC Bane for Level Up Expo. But if there's a if I could really get big enough, which I don't think I can do by February, maybe like next year at some point, I'd love to do All Might. It's so jacked. It's so it's so cool. Um,
Fantastic.
do they like
Fantastic.
My Hero?
Absolutely.
Oh, good, good. I
Absolutely.
haven't caught up with the last season. I think I'm on season 4. I haven't caught up in a while, but I've heard it's been pretty awesome.
There was a new Demon Slayer yesterday, and I was so busy I couldn't watch it. I was so pissed off.
Oh, you gotta catch up. Have
I
you guys
know.
had a I showed you I've showed you the veve app, right? With all the collectibles there.
No,
Or did I not? It was a that's what like kind of the whole convention was, and while I was there in while I was there in Cali last month. It's because they just dropped a bunch of Disney stuff. So like all the brands, like they have like Adventure Time, Back to the Future, that Disney. So they just dropped some DC stuff as well, like the first appearance of Wonder Woman and all that. They partnered with the USPS, which I don't know how the hell they did that, but again, they have Disney. So it's really cool. It's really fun. It's just for collectors. Show it to your daughters. It's called the VV app. It's VEVE,
I'll do that.
and make a lot of money. Any final thoughts? Any for the rest of the audience, or what do you want to say?
Don't have kids and raise them in Vegas.
That is
Do
a
yourself
good.
a favor.
That's good. All right. Well, copy that. Kerrie, just stay back after I end the broadcast for like 30 seconds, and then that's it. All right. Goodbye, guys. Everyone say thanks to Kerrie. Goodbye,
Bye.
Kerrie.